She's got it. She got it back. That'll be her 8th rebound. She's got it in a foul. Mitchell getting inside. Mitchell lays it in. Fox goes back to work and lays it in off the glass. Vivian spots free, and Vivian knocks it down.
What an effort by Danielle Robinson. There you go, Big T.
The Indiana Fever earned their first win of the season on Sunday. Tonight, they return to downtown Indianapolis, hoping for a repeat performance. And it's a rematch, round 2 of the Fever and Washington Mystics. WNBA basketball tonight on feverbasketball.com. And we welcome you inside our Bankers Life Fieldhouse studio alongside Toli Bevilacqua. I'm Pat Boylan. It's the final regular season home game at Bankers Life Fieldhouse for the Fever. They will make the transition after this to Indiana Farmers Coliseum. So they hope to go out on a strong note tonight with back-to-back wins over Washington. And Toli, Marianne Stanley made an adjustment in the starting lineups a couple of games ago, putting Jessica Breland into the starting 5. And Breland's been a revelation ever since.
Well, good day, Pat. And yes, Jessica Breland, wow, the last 2 games, she has been on fire. Now, has she been awakened by being injected into the starting lineup? Some may argue yes, but not Marianne Stanley. She said we knew exactly what Breland was going to bring to the table, and that's why they brought her back to the Indiana Fever, both offensively and defensively. The last 2 games giving some great minutes, complimenting Tierra McCowan extremely well. And Pat, just like the ball, the stats don't lie either. And she's been averaging 16 points and 13 rebounds these last 2 games.
Well, Tierra McCowan, she had a bounce-back performance on Sunday, a double-double in that win over Washington. This is year 3 for her. Where have you seen her game progress the most?
Well, Pat, I was there for year 1 when Big T was drafted to the Fever. And let me just tell you, the coaches really did have to go back to the drawing board and work on Big T's footwork, work on her spacing, understanding when to duck in and all the timing that comes with being a post player in the pros. And she has, we're really seeing the fruits of all that labor now. She is doing a fantastic job sealing down low in the paint in that restricted area and just dominating. And, you know, defensively, she's learning to play without fouling now. She knows now she can just have her hands up and not have to try and block every single shot.
And she had quite the battle on Sunday against Tina Charles. Washington still without their 2-time MVP, Elena Deladon, but they've got another MVP in their front court in Tina Charles, and she's playing terrifically lately. She's been over 30 points in her last 2 games.
Well, you talk about a beast out on there on the floor, and I really did miss Tina Charles in the bubble last season, but, I mean, she's getting it done from beyond the three-point line, on the free throw line and inside the paint. As we see now, she gets that steal. She's tough to stop, but what she's doing extremely well against the Indiana Fever post defenders is she's taking them off the block, as we see there, and using her dribble to create space. So I'm sure the Indiana Fever have gone back to the drawing boards and have worked out some way to stop her when she's working with the ball in her hand.
Yeah, Marianne Stanley saying that we know we are not going to shut her down, but we do need to slow her down. The Fever were able to win on Sunday despite that 31-point performance. Tonight, the Fever go for the 2-game sweep, starting lineups and tip. Fever and Mystics when we return. Indiana Fever basketball is brought to you by Ascension St. Vincent, listening to you, caring for you. And by Ortho Indy, official orthopedic provider of the Indiana Fever. Both Indiana and Washington looking for their 2nd win on the season. Indiana's 1-4, Washington is 1-3. The Fever beat the Mystics on Sunday night. As we take a look at our starting lineups for this evening's game, Marianne Stanley going with this group for the 3rd consecutive game. Mike Tebow of Washington mixing things up a bit.
Yes, well, he saw the success that it had for the Fever. He's like, well, I'm going to try and do the same. But Leilani Mitchell has been struggling up to this point. We're not used to seeing her just averaging only 1 point a game. And so maybe he's just trying to switch things up for her, take a little pressure off, change her up, and start her on the bench. But Hines Allen has been a starter for the Mystics in the past and played her first game the other night against the Fever, and he's just, I think, pretty quickly just wanting to get her back into that starting lineup.
Here's a look at the Fever head coach, Marianne Stanley. She's in her 2nd year as head coach in Indiana. She was the head coach of Washington for 2 years and then an assistant for 10 seasons. So she knows that other sideline very well. Marianne is 2-1 against her former team. The Fever have won 2 consecutive games against Washington, dating back to last season. And there's Mike Thibault, the winningest coach in WNBA history. He's also their general manager, 346 wins all time. His son Eric Thibault is on the staff. Asia Jones is the assistant that took over for Marianne Stanley. So plenty of experience at the head coaching position as we enter tonight's game, the second straight between Indiana and Washington. Tiara McCowan and Tina Charles will tip things off. McCowan off that double-double on Sunday. Charles had a 31-point effort, and McCowan wins the opening tip to Kelsey Mitchell. It was a complete win for Indiana on Sunday. The Fever trailed for just 53 seconds, earning their first victory of the season. They look Tiara McCowan's way a lot early. They will again tonight. McCowan can't get the roll there. And Charles pulls down the rebound for the Mystics, who are again without Elena Deladon. If you want to know her value, well, Washington, as Atkins gets underneath and lays it in. Washington wins 71% of their games when they have Deladon, 37% when they don't in her Washington career.
Well, that's just an unbelievable stat, and I'm sure the fans are just, waiting for that day where they see both Charles and Deladon out there on the court at the same time. I mean, what a deadly duo that's going to be.
Here's Kelsey Mitchell. She'll line up a 3, leaves that one short. Mitchell had 18 points, hit 3 3-pointers, her best night from beyond the arc on Sunday. Charles goes at McCowan and lays it in, and a nice start for Washington.
And like I said earlier, she's attacking McCowan off the dribble, and that's where she's creating the space and taking away the ability for McCowan to be able to either just affect her shot in any way.
Here's Jessica Breland, who's had back-to-back double-doubles for Indiana. And Tiffany Mitchell throws it away, so the Fever turn it over here for the first time tonight. We'll see plenty of this. Tina Charles, seemingly everything goes through Charles, especially with Deladon out on the floor.
Nearly everything. And what she's doing, if she's not making that basket, she's getting fouled as well. She went to the free throw line 5 times in the previous game.
Tasha Cloud running point for Washington as Charles from the mid-range. Mystics were held to 77 points on Sunday. Marianne Stanley felt like it was her group's best defensive effort of the season. Indiana still looking for their first scoring here tonight. Breland contested jump shot, and Breland knocks it down. Jessica Breland, who's played so well since being inserted into the starting lineup, a 17-point, 10-rebound game on Sunday. Sydney Weiss, who's getting her first start of the season. Charles step back on McCowan. She gets the roll. That's
just a great move right there. Started out with that dribble penetration, but that step back creating that extra space and that high shot release. I mean, it's a very unique shot.
Mitchell sets up Breland. And Jessica Breland, she's had it going. Double figures in back-to-back games. Now 14th in the league in rebounding. And you'll see her extend that game out to the perimeter. Not afraid to take that deep 2.
We've seen her take it even to the 3-point line. And, like we spoke about earlier, she hadn't played up till this season for like a year and a half. And it does take a few games just to get your legs back, as we see Tina Charles attempt a 3 right there. But it does take you a few games just to adjust back to the tempo of the professional game.
Fever had 26 assists on Sunday. That's the most any team has had in the league this year. And right on cue, the bigs play and catch. It's Breland to McCowan.
Well, I don't want to see a replay of that because she may have gotten away with a little shuffle there, but just great vision to see her other post player cutting to the basket.
Charles goes back to work. That sweeping hook shot. And that's the signature move of Tina Charles. She's been using that weapon since day 1 in the WNBA. She was the #1 pick back in 2010. Some miscommunication. Indiana turns it back over.
You see here just Oopsie, but look at that. You keep going with the play. You don't stop until that whistle is blown, and that's what they did.
Wow, it has the mismatch on to McCowan. She'll step back for three and miss everything.
Big T pretty much was like, I can't get out there. So Cloud had a wide open three, but missed everything on that shot. Probably one of the only attempts she'll be that wide open.
Well, by the way, was questionable for tonight's game with an ankle injury, is able to go, and now getting the point guard duties with Mitchell moving over to the bench. I've already seen 3 sloppy turnovers here from the Fever, these unforced errors.
And they are unforced. I mean, there's one thing to have that defensive pressure that, you know, you give the credit to the defense, but that's not what is happening right now. So the Fever really need to sharpen up on those passes.
Here's Charles on the drive into McCowan. And a nice start for Tina Charles. She's got 8 points in 4 minutes. Charles with 65 points in her last 2 games. That's the most points she's ever had in a 2-game span. That time Charles got called for the foul.
You see good passing back and forth between teammates, but just that attack off the dribble and such a soft touch. We've seen her last few shots hit the rim, but it's such a soft touch that it's allowing it to have a second chance.
There's Jantel Lavender. Weren't sure if we would see Lavender here today. She was questionable and did not play on Sunday with a left foot injury, and that's the foot that she injured and kept her out all of last season, so you certainly want to be careful with it. Tiffany Mitchell steps into a 3 and connects.
It's a great look for Tiffany Mitchell. No hesitation on that shot. And if she can get that 3-ball rolling for her tonight, that's just going to open up the floor then to create the dribble penetration.
Weiss is a knockdown 3-point shooter, and she hits her first attempt. Sydney Weiss getting her first start of the season. Mike Tebow maybe going with a little more shooting in that starting 5.
He is. They did shoot the ball particularly well the other night, so he's looking to improve on that percentage here. You see the Fever unable to connect on that attempt.
Indiana and Washington, they both struggled from the perimeter this season. Both teams shooting it under 30% as we enter tonight's game. That's Maisha Hines-Allen still looking to get going here in 2021. Her second game as Breland trying to feed Lavender. That hit off of Washington last and will stay with Indiana. Tiffany Mitchell in her 3rd start of the season. Came down a 3-point shot, first quarter from the field house. Fever fans, a reminder that the remainder of the Fever home schedule will be played at the Indiana Farmers Coliseum on the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Tickets for those games will be available beginning Thursday, June 3rd. You can keep up to date on the move and all Fever news at feverbasketball.com. This is the final game at the Fieldhouse, where the building will undergo renovations and be back and looking even more sparkling than ever next season. How lucky are we that while we will miss the Fieldhouse, this is a building in the Farmers Coliseum that was hosting NCAA tournament games just a couple months ago.
That's right. I made a couple of calls there myself for the Horizon League. So, you know, we're going to a good backup stadium.
Pacers home back in the day as well as Breland steps in, kicks out to Robinson, who knocks down the baseline jump shot. Danielle Robinson off a season-high 13 points. And the veteran showing off that jump shot here early.
Don't you just love what D-Rob is bringing to the Indiana Fever? I mean, she has been one of the most consistent players to date. She's getting it done. She's knocked a couple of threes down, but she doesn't normally do often, like, shoot the 3. But just doing a great job of running this team for Marion Stanley.
Also been terrific on the defensive end. Robinson 2nd in the league in steals. She had 4 of them on Sunday as Mitchell gets inside. Back to Robinson. She'll try the other side of the baseline. Breland battling for it underneath. Mitchell poked that away, and Charles touched it last.
Tiffany Mitchell just hanging around there on that play to create some bubble effect of the ball.
Well, the Fever have been terrific on the glass in the early portion of the season. Probably the thing they've done best. 2nd in the league in rebounding entering tonight. And there's Lauren Cox, who enters that talented front court. The Fever have a ton of size in that front court. This is game number 2. So Cox, the 3rd overall pick from last season, as Mitchell pulls off balance and knocks it down.
Well, I wasn't sure if she was expecting a call to be made on that, the way she kind of reacted on that shot, but just drained it.
Here's Charles with a foot on the line, and Charles hits. Tina Charles is 5 of 6 from the floor, already into double figures. Going to go for her first ever 30-point game in 3 consecutive. Cloud couldn't save it, and Indiana will take over possession. Victoria Vivians has checked in as well. We saw a great 4th quarter from Vivians on Sunday. You hope maybe that can get her going here. 11 points, and while the Fever had that double-digit lead, their offense started to sputter a little bit in the 4th, and it was Vivians to the rescue.
Well, when the Fever needed a basket, a big basket, as we see Tiffany Mitchell make a great cut to the basket, unfortunately unable to finish on that layup, but Vivians was knocking those shots down when it was needed. And I'm sure it gave her a good boost of confidence. I know her teammates were just over the moon for her, because they know what she's capable of doing. As we see Vivians on cue, getting involved in the steal, layup to D-Rob.
Well, that's what we saw from Vivians in the back half of her rookie year, that 3-and-D type of player. She hit 40% from the 3-point line, and a defensive stopper as well. Charles now backing in on Lavender to a cutting McCall. Pretty fine from Charles.
Well, you can't ball watch. I mean, whilst yes, you're trying to be on that help line, just waiting for Charles to make a move off that dribble, but you have to also know where your player is and can't let them just kind of like front cut or just get past you.
Mitchell cut off by Cloud. They get Cloud on the blocking foul.
This is just good pressure here defensively, getting a deflection, and Vivian's doing a good job there, just being able to control the ball there and at the last minute to find a running D-Rob.
You get the sense that just seeing the ball go through the hoop, it could give her confidence. You might see her playing better on the defensive end.
Oh, it definitely just flows from one end to the other, and obviously if she can just concentrate on the defense first and let the offense come to her. She knows when it's a good shot and the right shot for her to take.
Tina Charles has gone to the bench here for the final 90 seconds as Cox can't get it to go inside. Cox talked about it this morning. It's all about her rhythm and timing now. She's feeling better physically as Mitchell dials up a 3, and at her best, that's what Leilani Mitchell does, but she has really struggled with that shot in the early going. Just 2 of 18 from the 3-point line. Mitchell hits her 3rd of the year.
Lavender shot just coming up short there, and I thought she could have actually taken it to the basket because there was only one defender back there.
Now Mitchell gets by Allen, ran into Cox, who comes up with the steal. Allen pulls up. Kaiser Gondrzik, the Fever rookie, into the game for the first time, and Vivians called for traveling. That Indiana offense, which put up 89 points on Sunday, has been held to 41% shooting. You sense that they're still trying to find their rhythm here in the early going.
Just going back to Leilani Mitchell, I think I mentioned to you, as Weiss has an open look for a 3, can't knock that down, but Mitchell was that player that the Fever needed to be mindful of today. She's capable, and as we saw her knock down her first 3, I had to refrain myself by doing the oi, oi, oi. And she is an Aussie.
Vivian shot fakes the 3, side steps. Gondrzik able to save it, just not enough time on the clock, and that will take us through 1 from Bankers Live Fieldhouse. Rematch of Sunday's game. It's Washington up by 5 behind Tina Charles. After tonight, the Fever go on the road for 3 straight. Visits to Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Catch the Vegas and LA games streaming on the Fever Facebook page or feverbasketball.com. That Seattle game can be found on ESPN2. We are thrilled to be able to bring you 31 of the 32 games this year, and that ESPN2 game at Seattle, sorry Tolly, will be the one that we won't get to do. I know you always love getting to broadcast Fever versus Storm, a couple teams that you played for, although I think we do have you on the schedule for the other couple Storm games.
I am looking forward to that. Yes, it's always great to see, well, the only former teammate there on that team that I was playing with was Sue Bird. She's playing like a 25-year-old at the moment.
At some point, she's going to start to slow down, but it doesn't seem like anytime soon. It is unbelievable what Sue Bird is doing now over the age of 40.
Well, I mean, look at the comeback that they made the other game against Minnesota. As we see, three-point shot there by Vivian's short off the mark. But, you know, I think it's kind of, she's creating a new norm, you know, playing at, you know, there have been some of us, myself included, that reached that number still in their playing career. So, you know, she's just creating a new norm.
Atkins dials up a three to open us up here in the second quarter. Ariel Atkins, who's been that second scoring threat next to Tina Charles. Atkins went one pick ahead of Victoria Vivians in that 2018 draft. Here is Vivians, guarded by Atkins. Atkins falls to the floor, no whistle. Allen lines up a three and hits.
Well, there's good patience there by the Fever. Just trying to work the ball around, trying to get something to happen. And Lindsay Allen ended up open and just didn't make any mistake on that shot.
Allen's second three-pointer of the season. Atkins hits the long two. Well, the lefty is a sharpshooter and a defensive standout. All defense in all 3 seasons as a pro out of Texas.
Averaging 14 points a game this season and shooting the ball extremely well.
Whistle on Plaisance as Lavender was backing her way down. This is something you like to see from Lindsay Allen, that perimeter shooting as she comes in off the bench.
Well, we see a defensive miscommunication there on the Mystics, and Lindsay Allen, you know, not hesitating, realizing she was wide open. It's a good shot.
Allen has, by the way, just 1 turnover in Indiana's 5 games so far. 9 assists, that ratio. Best in the WNBA for a Fever team looking to improve in that category. Certainly significant to be able to bring a guard in who takes care of the ball.
Most definitely, and you know, at the start of this game, we saw the Fever struggle with some early unforced turnovers.
Gondresic will have to fire, and the rookie knocks it down with the shot clock winding down.
Well, that's great communication, great recognition of the shot clock. And boy, if she can come off the bench and get some instant offense like that, but who down the other end? It wasn't a 3 to counter the other 3, but still.
Charles has hit 6 of her 7 shots here so far as Vivian steps in and knocks it down.
Both teams now just starting to find a rhythm offensively as Tina Charles just drains that 3. Such confidence she has from beyond the 3-point line.
They're dealing with a lot of injury and absences. They don't have Elena Deladon, Alicia Clark, Emma Meeson, but this front court, it's hard to imagine with Deladon and Charles on the floor just how dynamic they could be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you isolate one, it's like, well, where is that help going to come from? Especially if you have perimeter shooters out there as well from your guys like Lelani Mitchell, Atkins, who's knocking them down. It's a formidable lineup, to say the least.
15 points in 10 minutes for Tina Charles. There is Leilani Mitchell talking to their head coach, Mike Tebow. Breland with the shot fake. And Lavender will draw the foul. So Lavender did not play on Sunday with that foot injury. Was really strong in those first couple of games against New York. And then after the Fever struggled in Connecticut, Marianne Stanley made that swap, putting Jessica Breland into the starting lineup, bringing Lavender off the bench. It certainly worked well for Breland.
And Marianne Stanley, you know, did speak about how, you know, she's just been trying to rotate players to find combinations that work well together. but also, you know, extended that to talking about how some players do better starting, some do better coming off the bench where they can just watch the flow of the game and kind of relax a little bit. So, you know, sometimes when you hear people talk about they're playing well enough, they should be starting, there may be reasons why.
Hines Allen with the shot clock to 7, just pulls over Robinson. No whistle, and Allen lays it in. That's her first scoring of the season. Allen was held scoreless on Sunday. She was runner-up for most improved a year ago. At her best, another weapon for Tebow, 17 points per game last year. Robinson bouncing back for Lavender, up top to Gondrzic. Good ball movement by Indiana, and Lavender able to save it for a fresh 14. And Robinson overshoots Breland. It's Indiana's 5th turnover.
Thankfully, of those 5 turnovers, it's only just resulted in 2 points to the Mystics. At the end of the game, these stats can add up, and you can see where a game can be won and lost.
Charles backing it on Lavender, sees the double team. That left-handed flip, and Charles has everything going here tonight.
That's just tough. I mean, she saw Breland come at her to form that double team, and she just turned the opposite direction and just flipped it over with the left.
Breland trying to go back to work. She spins and hits. Jessica Breland with 6 points here in 9 minutes of action. Continues to pay dividends for Marianne Stanley in that starting lineup. Breland has 4 assists also. You really have to be impressed with her vision.
Well, I was just about to mention that, but yes, I mean, not only is she trying to create for herself, but she's also bringing other players into the game as well. As we see, that was decent defense, but Shavante Zealous, we know, can knock down that jump shot.
She's made a living on that contested 2. Shavante Zealous, who spent 6 years at Indiana, knocking it down back in her old city. Anthem are honoring champions in the community throughout the Indiana Fever Anthem Assists Award. For details or to nominate your community champion, visit feverbasketball.com/anthemassists. Anthem and the Fever have teamed up for multiple initiatives, including that Athletes to Advocates program to help empower young women athletes and all athletes all over to be able to do more good with their platform. And we know that's something the WNBA has been probably stronger than any other league. This has been an outspoken league. And teams certainly for those inequalities long for the last couple of years, but we know today is in a lot of ways a solemn day.
And that play with the ball in her hands right now, Natasha Cloud, she was very pivotal in being extremely vocal, sat out last season to focus on being an advocate. And I mean, they're inspirational. The players have been inspirational to me.
Danielle Robinson called for the foul there. Midway through the second quarter, Washington shooting 70% from the floor, at 4 of their 8 3-pointers.
I took a look at the stats a little earlier as we see Z with the 3. No, I'm bad. Atkins, I got a little too excited then. I thought it was Shavante when I first looked up. When I looked over and the Fever was shooting above 40, I thought that was pretty good. You know, shooting in the 40s, give themselves a chance. And then I saw 70% from Washington. Was like, wow.
Breland knocks down another deep 2. Jessica Breland with 8 points. Indiana trying to get stops on this end. Washington at 71% from the field. 5 of their 9 3-pointers have fallen. There's Hines Allen off target. And a loose ball foul called on Tiffany Mitchell. It'll stay here with Washington.
Well, you've got to finish the job on defense. You've got to get that box out. When that shot goes up, get yourself on a body. Box out.
Mystics have a double-digit lead. Second quarter from the field house. Gotta love when you get canal weather in downtown Indianapolis. A warm Tuesday evening. Washington has opened up scorching. They are 68% from the field. You can get game ready and grab the latest and greatest team gear at feverteamstore.com. Be sure to grab tonight's game night special, an Indiana Fever hat for just $15. Check it out at feverteamstore.com. Been a quiet night so far for Kelsey Mitchell. Held scoreless in 8 minutes so far. The floater from Robinson. There's Tiffany Mitchell.
That one was way off the mark, unfortunately for the Indiana Fever, but you talked about Kelsey Mitchell having a quiet night so far. No points on the board, but also Tiara McCowan only has 2 points against her name. We're not used to seeing those two players with very few points between them right now.
Charles finally misses. And a loose ball foul will go against Cloud. Mitchell and McCowan combined for 35 points on Sunday. As you noted, just 2 points here so far. McCowan played those first 5 minutes and hasn't come back in. That is the second foul on Natasha Cloud. Indiana look to get Mitchell going here into halftime.
They'll look to try and run her off some screens as they're doing right now, just to try and get her to free herself from her opponent.
Cloud, the handoff to Hines Allen, who goes unescorted to the rim.
Well, Cloud, she started the push, and then she just, hesitated up the top there to survey what was on, and just a running Hines Allen. Just no defense around her whatsoever. As we can see, just haven't, not sure the communication aspect just fell through there, or two players went to one.
That was the 5th foul on Washington, so Indiana into the penalty. And Danielle Robinson will shoot free throws. Robinson, an 87% free throw shooter. This is just attempt number 3 of the first half for Indiana. Washington hasn't taken any. But they are hitting at a tremendous clip here so far. The Mystics shooting 64% from the field.
The Fever have done a good job of not fouling the shooter. But the Mystics are just knocking them down and making some tough shots. And this player here, Tina Charles, is that main culprit on that occasion, though, with tough defense with the miss.
Mitchell using that lavender screen and an offensive foul on Mitchell. Now Atkins slow to get up.
The referee has called Mitchell for creating that contact herself as she came off the screen initially. And while she hesitated, I'm sure we'll probably get a replay here shortly.
Cheryl Flores there was signaling for review to check and see if this is anything more than a common foul. There's the chief, Cheryl Flores. Brandon Schwab and Kevin Fahy are the other refs on site tonight.
I'm sure they'll find it's just a common foul there. Nothing real untoward.
Cheryl Flores very quickly has seen plenty, and common foul is that ruling. Nice job there by Cheryl Flores to go check.
That didn't take long at all.
Make
That's
sure
what we
you
like
get it right.
to see. Yep.
But don't disrupt the rhythm of the game either.
We have seen one of the in a game early where a review took about, I think it was the Phoenix game, very first Phoenix game, where it took about 12 minutes. But we understand the officials want to get the correct decision there.
There's Atkins, who was just hobbled a moment ago, coming up off the screen and knocking down the 2. Atkins has 12. She and Charles have combined for 29. Kelsey Kelsey ran right into Atkins and another offensive foul. Well, this is one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. And Kelsey Mitchell, who had 18 points on Sunday, so far has been frustrated by Ariel Atkins.
And she just read that perfectly. Read where Kelsey Mitchell wanted to go with that ball.
Atkins off the Hines-Allen screen. Shot clock down to 8. Hines-Allen hits a 2. Aisha Hines-Allen with 6 points.
Well, you can see why Mike Thibault has brought her back into the starting lineup straight away, giving them both offense and defense.
That's Lavender who connects on the other end. Chantel Lavender with 4 points in the first half. These shots that Indiana are getting to go, though, still they don't feel like they have that typical rhythm that you'd like to see from the Indiana offense. And now it's Charles dipping inside and the athletic finish.
It's just, you can't trade. You need to get some stops now. So, you know, Walser Fever knocking down a couple of shots. As we see Breland here knocking down another 15-foot jump shot. Now we've got to get some stops on the defensive end. We've talked about how coaches like to get stops in lots of 3 to start with.
Fever have just 6 points in the paint so far as Washington has protected their rim well. And on the other end, Washington with 24 points in the paint. They have been attacking that rim and having a lot of success with it here in the first half.
Tina Charles doesn't normally accumulate in the assist department, but when you lose vision of your player like that, she's going to find the open player.
Mitchell hands off Lavender. She couldn't handle it. Shot clock violation is the call. Mystics have put up a 29-point quarter. We'll add 1 second back to the clock. And Mike Thibault will take a timeout before we hit the half here. A lot can change in 2 days. And Mike Thibault's group, there's his son Eric at the bottom of your screen, showing just that. Their offense looked out of sorts. Indiana was running up and down the floor on Sunday. They've held the Fever to just 6 points in the paint. They are getting right to the rim on their offensive possessions. The Fever and Anthem are teaming up to help collect school supplies for Teachers' Treasures, help teachers keep classrooms stocked and safe. Runs through September 24th. Supplies can be dropped off at select Fever home games, including July 9th and August 31st, or donate virtually all season long. For details or to learn how you can do more to help, follow the Fever across all of our social platforms. Marianne Stanley and rookie Kaiser Gondrazik talking things over. In the final couple seconds here. Not her first trip to Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Take a look at the women's Big Ten tournament. Michigan versus Michigan State. 2017, Kaiser Gondrazik had a 23-point evening, 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Washington turns it over, and that will take us to halftime. A rare blemish on a sparkling first half for the Mystics. Aisha Hines-Allen and Washington leads by double digits at the half. We will hear from the commissioner coming up next. Tonight's Indiana Fever Halftime is brought to you by the Marion County Public Health Department. Look at scenic downtown Indianapolis along the canal, where the Indiana Fever are looking for the 2-game sweep and a back-to-back of the Washington Mystics. But it's Washington holding on to a 14-point lead as we hit the half at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Alongside Tully Bevilacqua, I'm Pat Boylan. Washington shooting at 67% in that first half. Tully, what have you seen that the Mystics have been able to have success on that end?
2 words. Tina Charles. I mean, she came out from the tip-off and just set the tone straight away, leading by example. Here we see her going off the dribble, just really dominating in the paint and also stepping outside as well and knocking down some mid-range jump shots and also extending out to the three-point line. But she has been well assisted by some of her teammates. Ariel Atkins, 12 points herself respectively, but when you're shooting that percentage, I mean, it's 67% from field goals, 45 from the three-point line, it makes it extremely tough.
Tina Charles had never had back-to-back 30-point games in her career. She already has back-to-back 30-point games and is looking for 3 in a row here tonight. Let's take a look at your first half stats. That field goal percentage for Washington really jumps out, 67% from the field, and Indiana having very little success in the paint. The Fever had 42 points in the paint on Sunday, a totally different story here tonight.
Well, we're expecting that's an area where the Fever were going to dominate all season, but 24-6, such a big margin right here, and we did really only see Tierra McCowan out there for 6 minutes in that half, so hopefully she's out there now fresh, ready to go.
McCowan, who had 17 points and 10 rebounds on Sunday, has been held in check here so far as Hines Allen battling with Breland, got the offensive rebound and the putback.
Well, that was good initial defense by Breland, but Hines Allen just sticking with it and getting that second effort.
Kelsey Mitchell, averaging 17 points per game, was held scoreless in that first quarter. Cloud and Atkins doing a nice job on her as Breland lines up a 3, leaves it short. And Indiana empty on their first possession. The 16-point lead is the largest of the evening for Washington.
Fever just need to try and get some chemistry going here offensively. And it's going to start by getting some stops, get some rebounds, and then push the ball. They look good when they can go downhill and create for each other, but we haven't been able to see any of that because of the high shooting percentage of the Mystics.
Kelsey Mitchell mentioned that at halftime. That was their adjustment last game, as there's good position for McCowan. McCowan, who played just 6 minutes in the first half, gets herself established here early in the third.
And go back to it. Go back to it. Whatever's working, keep going to it. And Tia McCarron, she can get deep down into that restricted area, is unstoppable. Atkins
fires and connects on a 3. Ariel Atkins has hit 3 from out there. She's got a 15-point evening going. And the second leading scorer here for Washington, dialing it up early in the third. Indiana still looking to get Kelsey Mitchell going. You can see she is garnering so much attention on the defensive end by the Mystics.
Well, you can see Atkins helping out there as well to try and take away any avenue Kelsey has to the basket. And she's coming off Daniel Robinson, and they're prepared to leave D-Rob out there for that three-point shot.
Indiana under 40% from the field. I think you have to give Washington a lot of credit. The Fever haven't had a ton of open looks here so far.
No, they haven't. And, you know, when they have had an open look, they haven't been able to knock us, obviously, a high percentage down is what they need to right now to get themselves back in this game, but hopefully get some defensive stops and push the ball and get some momentum that way.
Robinson drives by Atkins, lost the handle. We'll say it hit off Hines Allen and will stay here with Indiana. Marianne Stanley coaching against her former team, where she spent 11 seasons, a couple as a head coach, one coach of the year back in one of those seasons.
We've always asked players, you know, is there extra fire in the belly when you, as we see, Kelsey Mitchell just scoring right there, and maybe that's what's going to help trigger her getting her offensive game going.
It's not like she's had necessarily an off-shooting night. That's just her second attempt. Yeah. I mean, Washington has done a tremendous job of trying to take her out of the game, something very few teams have had success with over the last couple of years. And here, Cloud is on her. That's a tough look, but Mitchell hits it anyway.
And that's what, I mean, we're used to seeing Kelsey knock down tough shots as well.
Charles will fire. Tina Charles hit 7 of her first 8 shots, has cooled off a little bit. 2 for 5 since then.
In the locker room at halftime, I'm sure Marianne Stanley is, you know, said to her players, you know, hang in there. You know, surely, I mean, they're not going to keep shooting at that high level if we put on extra defensive pressure. So keep at it, keep plugging away defensively. Let's get those stops and we'll start narrowing this margin down play by play.
This Washington team's had an inconsistent season. They are 1-3 on the year, but their one win was a 29-point win over New York. And Indiana knows all about how good the Liberty appear to be this season. New York has opened the year 5-1. It shows you they certainly have that big game potential. Mitchell kicks, Robinson steps in and hits.
That's D-Rob's sweet spot right there, that 15-foot jump shot. Indiana Fever getting some stops together now, and they can just slowly accumulate on the offensive end.
Atkins off balance. Robinson weaving her way through traffic, fell to the floor, and the whistle will come against Tina Charles.
Tiffany Mitchell on that occasion getting into the middle of the keyway, drawing the help defense, and D-Rob just sliding down to get in that vision so that Tiffany knew she had an outlet pass there. But Kathy Engelbert mentioned the Commissioner's Cup, and you know, the level of play that we're seeing so early into the season is so high, and that could have attributed to that.
And Mitchell goes down hard as bodies hit the floor. Kelsey Mitchell, who's trying to work her way into this game here after a scoreless first half, a little slow to get up. Atkins gets called with the foul. Kelsey Mitchell will go to the free throw line where she is an 80% free throw shooter.
Just walking around trying to loosen up the ankle. Looking a little proppy on there. We'll find out after these free throws whether or not she's feeling some discomfort there that requires to be substituted out.
Mitchell, the #2 overall pick back in 2018. She was 6th in the league in scoring a year ago at 18 points per game. Perhaps that miss there, a sign that not quite yet at 100%.
Just rushing through the normal rhythm there at the free throw line. In that one, just hitting the front of the rim, but getting a nice bounce off the glass. Fever have done a good job now to bring the margin back to 12 points. So attribute that to their defense. They're making the Mystics take some tough shots now.
Washington gets the offensive rebound. Just their second of the evening. Hines Allen. Now Robinson looks to run. The Fever haven't had many of these opportunities tonight. Robinson earns the foul. Indiana with just 2 fast break points. And just 8 points in the paint. You imagine those numbers will need to change if the Fever are going to make a comeback.
That's D-Rob doing what D-Rob does best. You know, getting that outlet pass and just pushing the ball up the floor. And it was a late call. You can see D-Rob giving the stare down, asking for the foul.
Washington, by the way, still has not taken a free throw. These will be attempts 7 and 8 for Indiana. Robinson, one of the better foul shooters in the league, 87% for her career. A 3-time All-Star back from 2013 to 2015. It's all defense during that span as well. Now into double digits as Indiana's pulled back within 10.
Basketball is a game of runs. Indiana are going on one right now.
Well, there's certainly been more of a defensive emphasis on throwing bodies at Tina Charles.
Well, they needed to come out of halftime having tweaked some of those defendants' tendencies defensively, and you know, you come out with a game plan, and you know the good coaches know that at times you have to change that depending on how players are playing out there.
Wow, with the shot clock down to 7, swarmed by Robinson. Hines Allen fires. Gets her own offensive rebound. Here's Charles. Washington's gone cold here, but earning now a third opportunity. That won't fall, and there's Mitchell.
Oof, well.
And McCowan running the floor. Indiana back to it in single digits. McCowan with 4 points here in the third.
Well, right now the Mystics can't find water if they fell out the boat, but thankfully for the Indiana Fever, they can.
Charles through a triple team. And Tina Charles will go to the line for Washington's first free throws of the evening. The Fever have cut a 17-point deficit down to 8. They look to establish Big T here in the second half. Month of May in Indianapolis, the Indy 500 just a few days away. There's Simona Di Silvestro, a female-owned and run Peretta Autosport. They've been in the building here tonight at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, taking this one in, and totally so important to see women supporting women in this way.
Oh, that's just awesome. I mean, I will definitely have more interest in it now just to see how that goes. But, I mean, it's great that, you know, females support each other in all different sports.
Simona Di Silvestro is a longtime IndyCar driver, a veteran of the Indy 500, and she will certainly have many fans here in this city, this state, and throughout the country rooting for her this Sunday. Peretta is a terrific story by Beth Peretta, former director of SRT Motorsports. As McCowan now falls to the floor. It has been a physical third quarter, but Indiana working their way back into this game. Washington led by 17. Fever cut that deficit down to 8 moments ago.
It's all started from the defensive end, and that's attributed to the Fever picking up the pace offensively as we see Kelsey Mitchell, that lefty, 2 dribbles into that pull-up jump shot, getting it going.
Mitchell now with 5 points in the third. Indiana's going to need her here to come back in the second half. Big performance from Mitchell, likely necessary. Charles.
Oh, Pat, did you see that defensive attention right there? First it was Kelsey Mitchell coming for the trap, and she went back. Victoria Vivians was there for the help, and Kelsey Mitchell, you can just feel the pace of this game has picked up for the Indiana Fever, and now they are on the attack mode, and that's when they're at their best.
Well, you can imagine Marianne Stanley at halftime said to Kelsey, hey, we need you to be more aggressive. 0 points in the first half is certainly not what you typically see from Kelsey Mitchell. She took just 1 shot in the first 2 quarters.
And all of this is coming out of defensive rebounds. So, you know, in the first half, the Mystics were shooting at such a high percentage that they could get back in defense after the made basket. But now you're seeing missed shots. You're seeing Indiana being able to push the ball. They're able to drive and kick now because defense is not set.
Mitchell splits the pair at the line. A 6-point third quarter for Kelsey Mitchell. And Washington turns it over. The Mystics, who had 49 points in the first half, have been held to just 7 here in the third. My picture says 1,000 words right there. 2 Tebows talking things over. It's been a frustrated Mystics group here in the third as McCall gets a hand in there.
Indiana Fever know what Erica McCall does. She's out there for energy defensively, so they need to be aware of where she is when they're looking to pass the ball.
Leilani Mitchell checked back in. She played just 8 minutes in that first half. Mike Tebow switching things up. And that new starting 5 playing well here for the Mystics as Zealous on the attack. And Shavante Zealous will shoot free throws. This is year 12 for Shavante. 6 of those seasons spent here in Indiana. Won a title with the Fever. Was not on a roster last year. So not only at age 34 is she trying to work her way back into the WNBA, but kind of get her footing, although She's played over in Turkey the last few years and has played at an extremely high level. And veteran leadership, certainly something that Mike Thibault sought after in the offseason.
Yes, every team is just trying to get that balance, you know, with veterans, youth. As we see Victoria Vivian's making a tough shot. She cuts to the basket. I was surprised she maybe didn't get called for the and one. Leilani Mitchell applying a lot of defensive pressure there. Yeah, teams have moved a lot of pieces of the puzzle around and trying to just find combinations of youth and experiences. Leilani Mitchell, a timely three-point shot for the Mystics.
Mitchell had hit just 2 threes in her first 4 games. She has a pair of them tonight. Talk about experience. Mitchell, 13th season. Here's Kelsey weaving inside, using the glass, just couldn't get the bounce. Cowan touched that one last. Washington will keep possession. Indiana's been able to cut a 17-point deficit down to 7, but they've gotten no closer here in the third. As Lindsay Allen will give Danielle Robinson a brief spell. Robinson has played 25 minutes here so far, matching Tina Charles for the most on the night.
And this is where Lindsay Allen has to take over, keeping that defensive intensity where it is and then maybe increasing it because she has fresh legs now.
Charles attacking McCowan. She will spin and loft it in.
That's just tough, Pat. I mean, that's just a tough move. A vet player, a great player, a star player. She's a WNBA All-Star, MVP, Olympian. I mean, someone's going to make a tough move. That's her.
Vivian's on the other end, travels. It's Indiana's 10th turnover. Fever have certainly been improved here in the third. They're really lacking that offensive rhythm we saw on Sunday.
Well, the good thing on Sunday was when the Mystics did make a run at them defensively. Woo, that hurt. Weiss coming up for 3. Charles was happy about that.
Sydney Weiss now with 6 points, has knocked down a couple from out there. She is a shooting specialist. Mitchell finds Vivian's and an answer.
There we go, Tori. That is your spot.
Charles, she'll hit a 3. Perimeter shooting showdown here late in the third. Washington goes back up 15.
It's just like, hold my Gatorade.
And an offensive foul against Indiana. Cowan gets whistled. It's just her first.
How many times we see this? The screen's being set, but you know, to me that could be just let them play. I mean, there's not a lot in it.
Charles, step back 3. McCowan was there. Charles left it short. About a 7-second differential between the clocks. And Mitchell touched that one last. The Fever turn it over. Far too many of these unforced errors, and that one maybe not totally unforced as Weiss made a nice play on the ball there, but Indiana has had an inordinate amount of turnovers in the backcourt like that.
Well, Vivian's probably not used to having the ball in her hand going coast to coast, but as you say, they're heartbreakers when you're trying to get momentum and trying to get back from a deficit of 15 points.
Mitchell working around Charles. Mitchell on the drive, gets to the rim, bank shot too hard. One last look here for Indiana. Allen pulls up and hits, and that will take us, after Washington inbounds it here, through 3 quarters. The Mystics, though, led by 14 at the half. They lead it by 13 after 3. The Fever and Anthem are honoring champions in the community in downtown Indianapolis here tonight. Throughout Indiana, the Fever Anthem Assists Award. You can check out details or nominate your community champion by visiting feverbasketball.com/Anthem Assists. Washington with 20 assists tonight. That's already 5 more than they had on Sunday. Mike Thibault talking about that ball movements. Wasn't good enough for his liking on Sunday. Clearly an area of emphasis, and his Mystics are excelling in that department. As Breland steps back, tough shot. It was defended well by Charles. Their ball to open up the 4th here for the Fever. Indiana had 26 assists, by the way, on Sunday, which was the most by any team in any game this year. Washington on pace to approach that number.
Well, you mentioned ball movement was an emphasis of theirs coming into today's game, but also defense. Like I said, Indiana Fever 26 assists. Mike Thibault wasn't happy with their defense, their defensive pressure, and that was a focus coming into today's game.
Mitchell open, corner 3. Kaiser Gondrezick played 6 minutes in the first half. She wears number 4. She was the 4th overall pick in 2021. Vivians. Good defense there by McCall. Shot clock down to 6. Gondrezick working on Weiss. Gondrezick spins, falls to the floor. That's back-to-back shot clock violations for the Fever to open up the 4th.
Well, the Mystics coming out strong defensively in the 4th. Unfortunately for the Fever, it's 2 attempts now that they haven't had at the basket. And you know, when you have a deficit of 13 points, you can't afford to have those at the very start.
This is the 2nd back-to-back, same opponent of the season. As Hines Allen called for steps. In fact, 16 of the 32 games will feature either the front end or the back end of a back-to-back. That's a COVID protocol. We saw the NBA do this a lot this year too, and it's been interesting to watch these play out because you see the 2 series split, I think, a lot more often than you would if you weren't playing the same team in consecutive games, and a lot of it are those adjustments you're talking about.
And I actually would like it as a player because, you know, you don't have to go and learn a whole new team system in one day to prepare for, you know, your next opponent. And so, you know, some players are good at adapting game by game with limited time in between, and then there are others who aren't. So for that purpose, you know, I think it helps the players out. And like you said, it only gives you a few tweaks. If you lost, then you've got more fire in the belly to come out the next game and switch that result up.
Just wear and tear too. I mean, you consider it means less flights. For example, Washington, they get in and have a game on Sunday, then they just stay in Indianapolis for a couple of days where they typically would have flown home and then out to their next game. Allows teams to kind of call a different city home base for a few days.
Definitely all those things that I would be happy for it as a player myself.
It's a 13-point lead here for Washington. Indiana looking to cut into it in the 4th quarter as Allen drives inside, got around Mitchell, and a bank shot for Lindsay Allen.
That's just great work by Lindsay Allen, just keeping that dribble alive, just probing, feeling she had an advantage over Mitchell, just kept working at it. Persistence.
Zealous step back on Breland. Here's where Erica McCall is so dangerous on that offensive glass. Washington now with 4 offensive rebounds in the 2nd half alone. Weiss, corner 3.
Fever's defense has reduced the Mystics' shooting percentage from 67% down to 50%. So they're getting the job done defensively.
Now Lavender had to hold McCall. That's Indiana's first foul here in the 4th quarter.
Lavender putting her hand up, so she wasn't too unhappy with that. I mean, wasn't a lot, but she's accepting that foul.
Lavender playing 22 minutes. Just 1 of 6 from the floor here tonight after not playing on Sunday with that left foot injury. Indiana wanting to be careful with it. She had surgery on it and it kept her out all of last season. I think they're looking at this for a clear path.
Yeah,
Where are you in relation to the offensive player when this foul is called?
See, Lavender is behind and Tori is getting in line there.
It's really close. Yeah, it'll depend on if they view if Victoria Vivians is even with McCall there. Of course, it matters when the officials called that foul too, which can very slightly change that dynamic. Cheryl Flores, Brandon Schwab, and Kevin Fahy will talk things over. After this, the Fever will head to the road for 5 straight, including 2 consecutive games with Las Vegas. Vegas had the top record in the WNBA a year ago. They have determined it is a clear path foul. It was close, but you saw that great freeze frame there, and it did look like McCall was in behind the defense.
It's just a matter of inches on that one. McCall, though, unable to punish the Indiana Fever there, missing her first free throw.
McCall splits the pair. There's Jared Simpson to Marianne Stanley's left. He has now coached for all 3 PSNE teams. Was on the video staff with the Pacers, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants as well. Spent some time with the Northern Arizona Suns and is now back under the PSNE umbrella as an assistant with Marianne Stanley on the Fever. Great staff lined up this year. Vicki Hall, former Miss Indiana basketball and head coach at Indiana State. Mitchell on the drive, gets inside, athletic finish. Tiffany Mitchell brings Indiana back within 10.
Just a great offensive set in general. Working Tiffany Mitchell off some screens, doing a bit of a wheel action.
Hines Allen left open, and an answer from 3. Washington has knocked down 10 3-pointers on the night. Able to keep Indiana at an arm's length here in the second half. Mitchell looking to answer, Euro step finish. Tiffany Mitchell has been aggressive here in the 4th quarter.
Fever needing that aggressiveness going towards the basket. Trying to make something happen as we see a good read there by Kelsey Mitchell. Just reading that bounce pass by Zallis to Hines Allen.
Washington Mystics lead it by 11, under 6 minutes left to play from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Heading for the home stretch here from Bankers Life Fieldhouse, the Washington Mystics. Indiana Fever looking each for their 2nd win of the season. Here's tonight's heart-pounding moment, courtesy of Ascension St. Vincent. Tiffany Mitchell hangs, and with the athletic finish, Tiffany Mitchell going past a former teammate, Erica McCall, for tonight's Ascension St. Vincent heart-pounding moments. Lauren Cox has checked back in. Cox still looking for her first scoring of the season as Mitchell dials up a 3, and just like that, Indiana back within single digits.
A well-executed play coming out of that timeout. That's what you want to see. Kelsey Mitchell just working off some great screens there, getting open for that shot. But you got to get a stop as well.
And Tina Charles battling for position there with Lauren Cox. Cox dealing with some knee pain. She says it's been chronic right knee pain that she's been trying to get under control. Kept her out of those first 4 games of the season. Robinson with a shot clock down to 3, gets underneath, and Kelsey Mitchell stepped on the sideline.
D-Row just looking to try and create something out of a pick and roll situation there, but he's not quite in that corner quick enough to help her out. As we see Tiffany Mitchell, she has come alive in these last few minutes, just in the defensive lanes, getting steals, but just now starting to really attack the basket. Some good minutes from her.
Tina Charles with 28 points tonight. Going at the second-year pro, Lauren Cox in that sweeping hook shot for Charles. She's got 30 in 3 straight games. Able to balloon that lead back to double digits.
Her release is so high, it's so hard to defend.
Mitchell battling there. Hines Allen, though, comes up with a rebound. Here's Hines Allen, got through Breland. Hines Allen with a bank shot. And Washington's had a response to every Fever run here so far tonight. Aisha Hines Allen, who was scoreless in her opener, with 15 points in game 2. Fever fans, we would love your help. We want your feedback on tonight's streaming experience. Visit feverbasketball.com/survey to help us improve your Fever game day. Reminder that you can catch us in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky this year, feverbasketball.com. And on Facebook, we will be on numerous different platforms. Our slate on Valley Sports will begin later in the year on ESPN3 the other day. Love to have you in the building as well. feverbasketball.com when we make our transition over to Indiana Farmers Coliseum. Final 4 minutes here. The Fever trailing by 12, trying to work their way back into this one. Here's Cox left open.
Just to add to that, we're being heard all around the world, actually, because as we see another missed attempt from the perimeter by the Mystics. There's 2 very important people in Perth, Western Australia right now, reclining back, watching this with their cup of coffee, and that's my mum and dad. And I got a bone to pick with my mum because she sent me a text message saying that Pat Boylan looks really good on TV. I'm like, what am I, chopped liver?
I think she just assumed that you knew she looked good. Come on, she's your mom. There's a 3 from Atkins. He's had it going tonight, 18 points. Hello, of course, to the Bevilacquas. You also know the Hatars, Bernadette Hatar, and all of her family in Hungary. Unfortunately, Hatar is dealing with an ankle injury. It's keeping her out tonight. The Hungarian native has made her way to the Fever roster this year as Mitchell called for the push off there.
Yes, you can see just that extension of the arm. She was about to create that separation. Unfortunately, doing it with the wrong part of her body.
Charles, step back. Tina Charles has taken 22 shots tonight. It is the clear focal point of this Washington offense, at least until they get Elena Deladon back. They're hoping that will be coming, but at least they have not had her so far this season. They didn't have her all of last year either, as Breland's shot won't fall, and you can just see the frustration there from Jessica Breland. It's been that kind of night. Fever have had a couple of runs, but Washington's been able to stave them off. Here's Cloud, she'll fire and connect. Marianne Stanley will call it timeout.
Indiana's bench has done a very good job tonight, coming off and scoring 21 points collectively for the team. compared to the 13 points from the Mystics bench.
Vivian's trapped in the corner. And kick ball is the ruling. Vivian's has 7 points here tonight. To give her a lot of credit, what she did in the fourth quarter on Sunday to help the Fever nail that one down. She'll be a big part of Indiana's success going forward. Marianne Stanley labeled her as the most impressive player in training camp, and she got off to a little bit of a rocky start. Vivian's, I think that's to be expected when you only play 6 games in 2 seasons. But tonight, kind of a significant night for her because this is her 6th game of this season. So she has matched this year what she has played in the last 2 years combined. Her best days this year are certainly ahead of her. Here's Vivian's launching.
She's a shooter, so she needs to keep shooting to get herself out of the slump. So there are going to be shots that she will take that you can live with, because that's what she's been known to do.
3 consecutive 30-point nights for Tina Charles. She's been the story for the Mystics. She did have 31 on Sunday. It has been an impactful moments here tonight. She was so strong out of the gates as Vivian hits the runner. Now for Indiana, they get ready to head out for a monstrous road trip. Their longest road trip of the season. 5 consecutive games. They get Vegas a couple of times, Seattle, as Atkins' shot won't fall. These type of trips, especially early in the season, can really test a young team.
It can, but we've also known some Indiana Fever teams to do better on the road as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Lavender. Tough night for her, 1 of 7 from the field. A couple seconds between the clocks. But the Mystics, who went up by 14 points with that late second quarter run, the Fever able to cut it as low as 7 in the second half. Never got any closer. Mystics make some key adjustments off of Sunday night's game. And Washington earns the 2-game split. A 16-point win for Mike Thibault's group for his former assistant, Marianne Stanley. We will be back to wrap things up from the Fieldhouse coming up next.